Hi. So, what is the impact of rolling blackouts on the chronically ill? We're not going to use the euphemism load shedding. It's blackouts, okay? Even though currently they have went back a bit with load shedding, as we know, there's nothing reliable, and we'll most likely see the rolling blackouts back again for whatever reason. So the first impact is medication. In my case, I use biologics. Biologics are medication that are made from live cells, and they have to be maintained in the fridge from the process of making them to storing them and delivering them. And finally, when they get to the client at home, they are supposed to be refrigerated. Please ignore this picture. It was purely for taking a picture. It's in the sun, but I just put it down and took a picture, and that's it. And they are delivered in an ice box which has ice packs on the inside, and therefore obviously they're meant to be refrigerated immediately when you receive them as a client. And obviously it's important that they're maintained at a certain degree Celsius in the fridge. And you can imagine, in terms of blackouts, you have to make sure, as a patient, you continually check and make sure that the temperature doesn't drop in the fridge. And as we know, load shedding is very unreliable, and when you have these blackouts, they impact the substations. Electricity often doesn't come back, or when it comes back, there's such power surge that it then affects the electrical system of the house or the complex, wherever you might live, or the area. And then you might end up not having electricity for a while. And it puts so much pressure, therefore, on the patient in terms of making sure that things are refrigerated, the medication is refrigerated. And especially when I go to sleep at night, if there is load shedding or blackout overnight, I need to make sure there's some sort of ice in the fridge to maintain a certain temperature. Otherwise, this medication, like I said, it's made from living cells. In my case, apparently the medication is made from guinea pig cells. Okay, another topic for another day. But and I directly inject the medication and could have detrimental effect to my health, because this medication goes directly to my bloodstream. Yeah. Then the second thing is mobility devices or assistive devices. In my case, I will use the example of my electronic wheelchair. I cannot utilize a wheelchair that is non-electronic because my arthritis, as I've indicated before, it's rheumatoid arthritis, which affects all joints in the body. So it's not just certain joints in the body, unlike other types of arthritis. Oh, by the way, I found out that the plural is arthritis and not arthritises, as I was saying before in other videos. So an electronic wheelchair obviously needs to be recharged, and in my case, it has a double battery, and I had tested it before, and it can run for like 17 or 15 hours, but that depends on the surface as well that I'm on. So if it's like a tiled surface and it's in the office, it would last about that long. But if I've had occasions where I went out and it's a grassy area, and it also has a little not hills, but little hills, and that would obviously finish the battery more than if it's a tiled or surface. And of course, in terms of mobility aid like an electric wheelchair, it has a lifespan, and it's not going to last forever. And as time goes on, the batteries as well have a certain number of life cycle. It's very, therefore, because I only utilize the electric wheelchair when I go outside, I don't need to charge it daily. Unlike a person who needs to use it when they're also at home. In my case, at home, I only utilize the walker or the stick, as you might have seen in some of my videos as well. So I don't need to charge it regularly, but can you imagine someone who requires an electric wheelchair consistently and there's these blackouts? Before I talk about the third impact, it's still related to assistive devices, and I'll also make a personal example as well as examples from other chronically ill people with a different type of conditions than mine. I would like to talk about the backup batteries or the inverters. I had to purchase is this an inverter? No, I forgot. But my dear mother bought me this power backup battery to enable me to utilize an assistive device that I need, which is also related to my chronic illnesses. But it's also very important to obviously mention that majority of people in South Africa cannot afford inverters or these huge power banks to supply them with electricity for whatever use in the house outside of being chronically ill. But as we know that, being chronically ill comes with a lot of costs. And, having to then need backup power for the purposes of just being able to be functional and live life just adds to that frustration. And, in my case, I was lucky enough to have a mother who's able to also purchase me this inverter. But, majority of people are not going to be able to have that privilege purely because of inequalities in our country. Even myself as a working adult, I couldn't afford an inverter to enable me for the purposes of the third impact I'm about to go into. Chronically ill people deserve quality life, to be functional, to be able to love, to be happy, enjoy life. And also part of that is quality sleep. Now, since my diagnosis of rheumatoid arthritis and fibromyalgia, I developed sleep apnea, obstructive sleep apnea. There's two types of sleep apnea. The other one is central sleep apnea. I hope I'm getting that right. But the obstructive sleep apnea basically is inability to breathe when you're sleeping. And how it relates to rheumatoid arthritis is that because the immune system attacks all the joints, some of those joints are in the jaws as well as the spine, which are directly related to sleep apnea and rheumatoid arthritis. So level of deterioration in those areas around the jaw and the neck and the back and the spine increases your chances of having sleep apnea. Fibromyalgia, the myalgia speaks to muscles, and with fibromyalgia, it brings a lot of sleep problems. So my likelihood of getting sleep apnea was extremely high due to having these conditions, and I developed it. And I need breathing assistive device when I sleep. In my case, they discovered that I have an extreme form of obstructive sleep apnea. I would stop breathing around 41 times per hour. So if you can imagine, if I sleep between 7 and 8 hours, it would be times those hours, 41 times those hours. Bringing it back to rolling blackouts, this CPAP machine, breathing machine, requires consistent power, electrical power, to be functional, to enable me to have quality supply of oxygen and as well as quality of sleep. So I just connected to the backup power. The immediate impact of lack of quality of sleep are being fatigued, exhausted, increase of level of pain and fatigue, and it's just a vicious cycle. There are lower chances of having sudden death due to obstructive sleep apnea, but it is possible. But it's not the same as people with other types of chronic illnesses, which I'll cover in another video because I do not have sufficient time here. But other impact is heart attacks, strokes, the possibilities of other chronic illnesses like diabetes. I hope you learned something, as well as the impact of load shedding and blackouts on chronically ill people. Thank you.